Some new friends. Just going to do an interview today with Web3 lawyers, and that's even the title of their firm. That's how smart they are and astute about approaching this space. And I bring you this interview with these guys because they really struck me at Supermint, where I met them here in Los Angeles, as really sophisticated in understanding the space in a way that was very engaging and understandable. I have lawyers are close to my heart in this town of Hollywood because, in a sense, they act like producers to some degree. They all know the movers and the shakers, and they understand the fundamentals of how to protect yourself in a space, and how to guide you, through these sort of creative conundrums where you really want to be able to open yourself for the ability, to create, have your work out there, monetize, and do these great, powerful things. And these guys also drop some really nice tips about how to do so as a collector, how to protect yourself. And I think it's a really great interview that I hope you stick through to the end because again, they really go over some important details about the space. And this is the thing, it's like nobody's really talking a lot about this stuff because I do this live. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification because this is of the moment. I mean, we're talking about stuff in this interview of things that have just dropped last week, guidance by the government. Check these guys out. They have some nice, I'm going to drop the socials and everything down below, so give them a follow on Twitter. Really smart people to follow in the space, and they're connected, really, really well connected to, again, the growing and burgeoning space of Web3 legal. Hey, Crypto Media friends, we're here with Carlos Garcia-Aguilar and his partner.
It's Oscar Goubina.
Topic event, current events. Let's roll with it. Topic of discussion currently I've been noticing is around the Snoop Dogg release. Does he have the rights to give all the rights to those tracks that he's dropping? And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Snoop Dogg dropped a mixtape, like, just midnight, every midnight he's been like dropping tracks, and he's just like, you buy it, it's yours, and he gives you the stems and everything, and you can remix, and it's exciting, from the creator standpoint. But what's your guys' take on the legal standpoint?
Well, look, I'll sort of give the broad overview because I know about what Snoop is doing right now. And I think a better way to sort of approach questions like that is really what has to happen for, like a lot of people are not correctly conveying intellectual property rights, which just across the industry has become sort of a big issue. And so I guess, whenever you're looking at, and I apologize, we have like some construction going on. So this is going to be a super exciting interview.
You guys are growing. This is how fast you're growing. It's literally being built behind you. Web3 is being built behind you.
Literally as we speak, we are growing. So it's good. But no, with intellectual property rights, I think that's going to be one of the next sort of big things that happens in the NFT world. Right now, we're doing a lot with intellectual property. We have a really fantastic partner. Her name is Eliana Torres, and we're going to be doing a legal education thing for lawyers in April in Washington, D.C. for the American Bar Association, because intellectual property rights are just sort of ripe for litigation. There's been a bunch of things that have happened so far. With Snoop, I think generally when you're the creator and it appears that you own most of the rights, as long as you convey them correctly, you're probably going to be okay. But we've seen other really interesting situations with, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened with Quentin Tarantino and some offerings of the NFT scenes from Pulp Fiction. So you have that, and there's sort of this dispute that's rooted in the contract that he originally had for Pulp Fiction. And then you have things like what was going on with Birkin and Hermes. So there was a metaverse bag that was offered that looked exactly like one of their pieces, and they sent some cease and desist letters. So it's really interesting. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that the established law, in very common plain terms, is if the more it appears to be something that's protected intellectual property, whether it's copyright, trademark, whatever, probably the more likely is going to be that the person who owns that intellectual property is going to do something. but you go to OpenSea and you can see like, here's a perfect example. This literally just happened this week. One of our really good friends is a famous wrestler, and he's a luchador. He was in WWE for a number of years, and one of his friends has a very distinct mask, and he's another well-known wrestler. Well, they got sent this, like, basically kind of like baiting them to, hey, come and buy this on OpenSea because we think it's really cool. And it was like literally copies of masks that are they're protected intellectual property on some like bootleg ape derivatives. So it's I mean, it happens like every day. So I'm actually surprised that it hasn't been in the news more lately, but there have been a couple of situations. Entertainment industry, Dame Dash. That was a major one. That was probably one of the first ones that happened where there was a real challenge to who owned the intellectual property. So there's a ton of interesting things going on.
Yeah.
And because of the amount of money that some people are making off of this, it invites litigation.
That's what I love about your service is or the proposal of your service. And I'm trying to help sort of distinguish. I think there's Moby Mints, and then there's Farfetch Labs, and then there's Web3 lawyers. And so if you could kind of break down, because what I had heard when I heard you speak was this really beautiful amalgamation of tech and legal, so that artists can literally jump over the stuff that we hate, the sort of the tech and the legal side of things, and actually create in the space and connect with somebody who can guide through that part of the process. And so I guess which part of the services?
The way I see it, it's a one-stop shop.
Well, it is, but it's also important, especially for us as attorneys, because we have to adhere to certain rules of professional conduct that we make it very easily to discern where one business ends and the other begins, and sort of how they all interact. So Web3 Lawyers is a law firm that's wholly owned by our organic law firm here in Texas. It's a trade name that we practice under. So that's one entity. Separate and apart from that is Farfetched Labs. Farfetched Labs is, we are a blockchain and NFT technology company. And we're really, really making a concerted effort to make sure that people understand we're a blockchain and NFT technology company, not just an NFT project. There's nothing wrong with just being an NFT project, but where we fit best in the industry and how we help most is by empowering other projects, and Moby Mints is one offshoot of a set of projects that we're doing at Farfetched Labs. So at Farfetched Labs, we have our minting live right now for our scientists. They produce a vial token, and we are the first company. I'd invite anybody who could kind of challenge this timeline wise, because I don't know of anyone else that's doing this. We're the first company that really took a stand to help empower projects and lower the barrier to entry. So the vial tokens that our scientists produce can be redeemed for a number of things. A consultation with the business, legal strategy team, all the way up to a full-blown project with our developers to take it from cradle to grave and launch it for you. So that's really where we see ourselves playing a big role, because we want to lower the barrier to entry, we want to drive innovation, and if you're going to collect NFTs anyway, why not get one with a vial token that allows you to do a number of things? And a side note, we're very opposed to the whole roadmap model in the industry right now. I think it's perfectly fine to have a roadmap as long as the company or the group can adhere to it. So we started out with roadmaps early on. We recently decided, hey, we're going to scrap everything and just put out there exactly what you get right now with your vial tokens, because people just shouldn't have to wait on that.
Yeah, that's the sort of the challenging part, as you mentioned, the barrier of entry. And that's it could be as simple as getting a MetaMask. Just the access to Web3 right now has these these minor barriers that we think of as minor as we're in space. But from the first steps, they look kind of intimidating, because you hear about the loss, you hear about these sort of things. And I think we saw at Supermint was a lot of young artists, even established artists. Like, I mean, there was the hip hop producer who had a crazy library who was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, it was just like, I hear about this stuff. I guess how do you guys help those people, like somebody with either an established artist or an established library? How do you help them in the process of getting into the Web3 space?
So it's funny that you bring up that example, because that's actually someone that we were able to connect with, and looks like we're probably going to be helping.
Nice.
The way that we help them is by bringing their creative, whatever it is, whether it's tactile art or music or whatever, to the blockchain, with the correct legal apparatus for intellectual property, all those other things, and developers, and advising them on marketing. So that's
business structure
and business. Oh, that's another, actually, that if you want to talk about that, that's a big, it's low hanging fruit, but very important in the industry right now.
Yeah.
So just, I mean,
no, please, please talk about that, because that is foundational, very important. I think what you see in the space is, especially I see it a lot from sort of the younger artists, is they don't have an understanding of a structure that's necessary in order to do like a launch or a PFP type of project.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by business structure?
So what we mean is, or what I mean by business structure, it's basically having the legal entity or entities that will help the project move along within the legal guidance or legal spectrum that we're going to be providing. So, for example, if it's like a DAO, right? Make sure that the structure of that DAO is in accordance with the goal or the plan for the project.
And here's what it means at a practical level for anybody trying to do a project.
Yeah.
You always want to protect your personal wealth and business. It's no different than the guy who goes and opens up a restaurant, okay? The guy or gal that opens up the restaurant establishes an LLC so that they can protect their personal assets if something happens, a slip and fall, a lawsuit, whatever. It's much the same in the metaverse. So that's one of the first things that we always advise clients on is, hey, put together even if it's a simple LLC, a corporation, whatever, so that you're protected as money starts to flow. When money starts to flow, lawsuits are kind of, I'm sure if you threw up a graph of money and lawsuits, you're going to see a pretty positive correlation. But that's one of the things that, because the industry moved along so fast, because there's a lot of young artists getting in there, young innovators getting in there, some of that becomes an afterthought. And I think it's largely, when you're starting from a position of none of the things are apparent. Like, are you going to have a slip and fall with an NFT project and get sued? No, probably not. But at some point, we're going to come to the juncture.
Just you wait. Someone will figure that out.
Yeah, no, hey, you know what? With this sandbox stuff, there may be an avatar that ends up with a good slip and fall case. So call us. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that there's other ways that people face liabilities. I'll give you a big example here. A lot of NFT projects don't put proper terms of use or terms and conditions on their website to basically insulate themselves from third-party bad actors. So let's say there's a hacker out there that figures out how to, infiltrate the contract or do something with the MetaMask or create a clone website. Well, those are all things that you're responsible for the commerce on your platform. So you want to be covered if that happens, so that people can't come back later and say, hey, this was your fault. You didn't take appropriate measures to protect. There's also some minor privacy policy issues, but those are less and less, largely due to anonymity. But
question, do website disclaimers have validity? Like if I just post it, because that's the thing, is like I've been on projects where they'll say something in sort of the landing page, like, hey, go and make something, be cool. And then if you go into sort of the legalese of their disclaimer, which is in very small print and kind of hard to find, buried in sort of the substructure of the website, it's very, very restrictive. But do those claims, in that disclaimer buried in the website have validity?
It depends. How about a lawyer answer for you? It depends.
the way, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, it does have some validity because it puts, you know, the users and the holders of that NFT or project, it puts them on notice as to, you know, the terms of use for that NFT, terms of services, conditions, etc. So that's the way I personally would see it, that, you know what, you had notice, if, you know, if you read the website, that's the user receiving notice from the project.
Think of it like this, okay? Think of it like a regular contract, okay? If we agree to do something, that's kind of the genesis of a contract, okay? Mutual assent, we know what's going on. So the way that we craft our terms of service and our terms of use is basically acceptance based on use. So just by virtue of you using it, that's like your end of the deal where you consummate everything. By using it, you agree to everything, right? There's also some other ways that, you know, depending on the project and what they're doing, there's disclaimers to say that things are not a security, for example. You know, this offering is not a security. We're selling you a collectible and putting all that language in there correctly. There's also
such a very fine line right now, right? With the advent of DAOs, with the advent of these PFPs that are trying to expand upon utility, but do seem to, you know, fall into the securities area. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I want to touch on that really quick too, if you have you have a second. But I want to finish out this part because this is really important too. There's other things that come along with Web3 and this open commerce that we want our clients to be aware of. So, for instance, there's an OFAC guidance that just came out. OFAC guidance that basically prevents certain foreign people from purchasing assets if they're on certain ban lists. So there's all this stuff that you want to watch out for that really, I guess unless you're nerds like us, you wouldn't really, you know, even pay attention to. But going back to the securities thing, we actually just did a really interesting Twitter Spaces with some of our folks, DeFi defense lawyer, Carlo D'Angelo, great guy. Shout out to Carlo. Please, you know, if anyone sees this, follow him. He's an absolutely brilliant guy. Zach Lewis, he goes by Nifty John, and a couple of other lawyers, Ash Kernan that we work with frequently. And the SEC just released guidance, and this is more based on cryptos, but it also applies to NFTs. And essentially what the SEC said is, okay, we are not going to give amnesty to anybody for self-reporting. If you have a security and you report it to us, we may look favorably at you, but we're not going to give you amnesty. And that does a couple of things to the market. I think it makes people less likely to report, but it's also really, you know, as an attorney, and I spent 17 years in government, so I kind of see how things work, but it's like we've been provided this very gray area of what a security is. There's the Howey test, and that's a lot of people have heard about that. But we're essentially saying if you're in a gray area, even if you're trying to comply, they're not going to give you amnesty. Yeah. So it's things like that as the industry is evolving that really, you know, in my opinion, that's going to be one of the biggest differentiators between the successful companies and projects and the unsuccessful ones, because litigation can be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So there's you know, there's two areas of I think client that I sort of see for, you know, needing, you know, your services in a sense. You know, one is the artist. So I want to try and wrap up with the artist. You know, what is it that they need before they come to you, when they come to you, and sort of what is it that they should expect in terms of being taken through the process?
Sure. Our main role with artists is to make sure that their intellectual property is protected and that there's a clean lineage. I mean, it's kind of like provenance, you know, with works of tactile art and stuff. Just make sure that we try to make sure for them that they have a clean, traceable path of the intellectual property. so that once it's launched in a project or whatever, they don't run into any issues. You know, some examples would probably be like, if an artist has a work of art and that was created because of a work for hire contract or something like that previously, well, they may not have the intellectual property rights to move forward with their project. Similarly,
I've got a lot of Marvel artist friends who are experiencing that. Early on, they started doing a lot of NFT drops, just creation based upon their art, because they're very famous artists, but they're doing characters that, as you said, were for hires early on.
Yeah, and the other thing is making sure that you have the proper rights to the components within the art itself. So Beeple's a great example. Beeple buys like 3D renderings and stuff like that. He'll go in and make them like, you know, fantastic. And it's important, especially for artists like that, high profile artists, to make sure that they own the entire intellectual property rights for the components that are going to go into the art itself. Whether it's 3D renderings, maybe you're buying certain features or something like that, or whatever you're going to incorporate that's not wholly done for the project.
Same question from a brand's perspective, because that's what mostly rings off my hook are brands who are trying to understand the space and trying to figure out like how to approach this space. What sort of guidance do you give for brands? Like, you know, just a brand, like, you know, I see you're wearing a watch right there. So that watchmaker is definitely looking at NFTs right now, definitely looking how to take that chronograph look of whatever they have and apply it to an Apple Watch and sell it as an NFT, so that, you know, you can wear their brand in a sense in the quote unquote metaverse style of distribution. So I guess, what is it that you offer those brands in terms of guidance as they come to you?
You know, so I guess it really depends on how they're trying to do the project. If they already own the intellectual property, then it's not super difficult.
Yeah.
Now, you know, if we have somebody come to us and they say, hey, you know, we saw something on OpenSea and it looks just like ours, like our trademark or our copyright or something that we own already, that gets a little more difficult because the judicial system is kind of slow to catch up with some things. So once things are on the blockchain, and there's a very sort of technical explanation for the picture itself, and you know what that NFT is not like the picture, but the code behind it, and it's so there's all these like deep arguments you can get into, right? But you know what our clients want is for their intellectual property to be taken off of OpenSea or any other, you know, platform. So, you know, sending a cease and desist letter, things like that. The big challenge that we run into is anonymity, because sometimes you just don't know, you know, who do you send it to, right? There's no metaverse mail system yet. You know, arguably Twitter, I guess, is the metaverse mail system. But we have we have an interesting lawsuit of what I think is going to be first impression here in Texas. And this is public record, so anybody can go look at it. It's not IP related, but this highlights the anonymity challenge here. So if you go to the El Paso District Court record, this is public record. You'll see a lawsuit that's Farfetch Labs Incorporated versus Chum Chum number 7777. Because it's an anonymous person. Luckily, the blockchain has given us the ability to trace everything to an off-ramp at Coinbase. And our strategy is going to be to subpoena records from a KYC approved platform that has all the identity information. So what we're trying to do for the legal industry is push this thing to make sure that people can be protected. I'm not, you know, I don't think either of us are big fans of regulation at all. And so for the industry to sort of self-regulate, these private suits have to be able to stand in some way, shape, or form, because it can't be the case that everyone is just doing whatever they want and that no laws apply.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I think that's the interesting part about, being from the creative standpoint, when it comes to generating a project. I think as we talked about, artists, having, their rights and then coming to you guys, would it be safe to say that, given how many, as you said, once being a one-stop shop, they bring a project, what is it that you do for them, taking them through the minting process, through the technological side of things, into like, where's your endpoint that you hand them off, like okay, well, here's your your Discord, and here's all your followers, and here's your sellout of 10,000. What is that process like on the technological side, if you can speak to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not super tech guys. We know maybe more than the average lawyer, but definitely less than a developer. But what it looks like generally is we get a consult in, we talk to them about what their goals are, and we make our recommendations. So right now, utility is big. There has to be some utility. So doing things like including token production with the NFT staking features, all those things. And then we really narrow down, what their goal is, and then hand it off to the developers and let them do their thing. And what I think is very unique about how we do things, compared to sort of a traditional model, no matter what art it is that's going to be offered, is we don't take any continuing royalties or intellectual property interest in what's produced for the project, nothing like that. So
you guys are just a service company that does a one-time fee.
Exactly. And it's all based off of initial mints. And then after that, we're big on making sure, we have a lot of friends that are like, rap artists, stuff like that. And traditionally that's been an industry where your intellectual property is going to be encumbered, and everything that you do is going to be encumbered by a record label, right? So we're trying to break the mold there and make it so that it may be a little bit harder to finance the initial project, but once you do it, you own your work free and clear of anyone else being able to interfere. And that's the goal, whether it's a painter, sculptor, singer, songwriter, whatever.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys' vision for this space, and bringing sort of to bear the experience that you have as lawyers, and to bringing clarity as to what can and cannot be done, and also giving guidelines for artists to allow them not only to bring it to the space legally, but also technically. And I think that's a great amalgamation that you guys have created. Like, how did that come about? Like, just like, because being lawyers, like, how did you have the foresight to say we need this?
Yeah, I mean, so from my personal experience, so I got into the space just because a couple of friends of mine, and I actually started as a co-founder for a project in the Solana network. And then as I started, being more in Twitter spaces, Discord, things like that, artists and developers were mainly just asking me questions, like, well, how can I do this to protect myself? Or how can I do this to make sure that my intellectual property, my art, isn't used by anybody else and it's owned by me? Just all of those questions started arising. And at that point, I specialize mostly on the business structure side. And, as all those questions started coming towards me, I saw that there was this need for a Web3 lawyer that can guide the artists, the developers, basically anyone who wants to start a project that is asking just for guidance to be sure, especially to protect their own IP. I think that was the main thing and the main questions that were asked to me as I was in, in Discords, Twitter spaces, things like that. And from that, I actually organically, I met Carlos. I met the rest of the Web3 lawyers, attorneys or partners. And, with them, with their expertise and experience, knowledge, I was able to not just be like on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens, but basically, dive right into the issues and trying to help people, making sure to give them the correct legal guidance that they need.
Jumping in is like 90% of the space, right? It feels like it's like that's the number one piece of advice that I always give is just like get involved, get that MetaMask, buy your first piece of crypto, get on OpenSeas, buy the NFT that you're looking at, and really start to feel out the thing, and then make something. Really, I think that's kind of the focus.
And the thing is, I think, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have. Okay, so let's put it this way: me diving into, getting my own NFTs, looking into what projects I should jump into, I probably would have done that. But when it comes to the legal side, me providing the guidance to people that come to me, I probably wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for Carlos, Courtney, all the Web3 lawyers, partners. If it wasn't for them, I probably would have kind of be on the sidelines. So a lot of what I'm doing right now, it's thanks to them.
We got a good team, man.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I think there's a lot of really good attorneys that are doing really good work out there. And I encourage all of them to just go buy NFTs, just go feel the industry for what it is. And there was a question a while back, and they basically, an attorney got asked that was holding themselves out, well, hey, how many NFTs do you hold? Like, what do you do? And they were like, well, I'm more like, and it's like, that's okay. That is in fact an okay thing. But I do think it helps to be like, I've been rugged before and it sucked. Like I hated it, right? And I've been right there, like watching floors drop and like the whole nine, right? Which I think is a really good experience to go through as an attorney if you're going to be in the space.
We don't wish it to anyone.
We don't wish it to, yeah, exactly. We don't wish it to anyone. Yeah. But it's like, sometimes these crazy arguments come up. There was this little spat, like in the attorney world, someone said, hey, don't go to an attorney for NFT advice if they don't own any NFTs, which was like, ha, funny, and someone went on there and commented like, well, I don't have to murder somebody to defend a murder suspect. And I'm like, come on, man, like let's reel it back in here to reality. We're saying go buy a JPEG, brother. That's,
Well, I agree with you. I don't think it's necessary. A lot of people in the community, in the NFT space, that's how they see it actually. Like,
totally.
In LA, I've met a lot of people and they were like, well, as an attorney, do you buy your own NFTs? Or like, do you like a projects? And I said, yeah, I have my own NFTs. These are the ones I have in Ethereum. These are the ones I have in Solana. And by the end of the conversation, he was like, okay, good. That's a good lawyer. That a good lawyer should have their own NFTs when trying to represent clients. And that's exactly how he said it. So I was like, okay, I mean, it's not necessary. It's not something.
Yeah. But it's nice because it's, we think of ourselves as a community, and if you've been in this space for any amount of time, you've seen the growth in the community, and it did start very small. And so within that sort of intimacy of the community, we like to understand that people understand us and all the what a DGen is and sort of the mentality of it, because I think I experienced that a lot at Supermint. I met a lot of people who didn't know the space. They wanted to be in this space. They couldn't speak articulately about much about the space other than they wanted to dominate it and they wanted to be the bridge. How many times did you hear this? I'm the bridge between Hollywood and NFTs. It's just like I heard that so many times at that event, but without that specific understanding of if you get into that second deeper version of the conversation, you're like, okay, well, what is it that you want to do in this space? And you want to represent Azuki, but you don't know anybody at Azuki. Okay, cool. But it's like they know they want to dominate it, but they really haven't gotten into the space and been rugged, as you said, and experienced some of the painfulness of what we're trying to avoid as creators. I think here on the channel we always ask people to get involved with the space, create in this space, but also as a collector you can feel out the space. and get that experience, so you know how you kind of want to approach things. And so again, I think you guys have set up an incredibly brilliant strategy for a service, because I think it's in dire need. As you said, you're sitting in Discords and you're hearing these types of questions, because I think that's the apprehension, the barrier of entry right now for artists, and libraries and brands. The only barrier right now is just a phone call to you guys, or website. So how do we connect with you guys?
So the best way, you want to give them your social media really quick first?
Okay, yeah, I mean, in my social media, you can find me in Instagram. It's gonna be Oscar Goubina _Esquire, ESQ.
I'm gonna get those texts and I'm gonna put them down below, because that one sounds extensive.
Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
You gotta keep it below like 8 letters, man. Come on here.
That's my professional. That's my professional
I
account.
feel you,
have
man. I feel you.
And in Twitter, they can find me as Distal Lawyer. My Twitter handle is actually, or the ad is at Ogorb, GOURB, and that's it.
And you guys can find me either on Instagram or Twitter at CarlosG _ESQ. And then for our all of our pages for Web3 lawyers is just Web3 _lawyers, and web3lawyers.io is our website. So we're going to start actually in the next 2 weeks. We're really building out our catalog of blogs and just different information to get out there to people. And I would be remiss if I could just take a couple seconds here to thank a couple of people, because they're really, really, really important to this whole operation, and we wouldn't be doing this without them. Courtney Bowie, our law partner, Eliana Torres, our other partner in Web3 Lawyers, Ash Kernan, our other partner in Web3 Lawyers, Carlo D'Angelo, who is just a fantastic attorney. He goes by DeFi Defense Attorney on Twitter, and Zach Lewis. Zach has been instrumental in the just in the Web3 space, NFT space. He started a Discord for lawyers only. Now there's about there's almost 2,000 of us in there, I think, and it's just constant arguments because it's all lawyers, right? But they have really done a fantastic job, and I'm grateful to call them my friends, and thank you for just even being interested in hearing about what we're doing.
As we're talking about, as you're acknowledging those people, this is a community, and it really starts and germinates from there, and the good work in a way begets that. It begets having and starting with foundationally strong communities, people who are really interested in this space for a lot of different reasons, but are passionate about it. And when you have that many people, you're going to get that. And that's what Web3 is that amalgamation, that bringing together of the differing perspectives to hopefully say something interesting. So I thank you again, guys, and hopefully we'll see you soon, and we'll catch up with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good.
Yeah, thank you for this. It was really fun. Appreciate it.